So
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
I just don't know if I can follow that.
you can't.
You're right. This morning, or let me preface this. I called or texted Ann about, what was it, Wednesday? And said, you know, I'm going to do my sermon this week on where is God in all this suffering. I was watching the news, and I was looking at Facebook, and I just wasn't seeing anything but tragedy. And I said, well, I'm going to use John chapter 11 to bring my point home. But as the week went on, the more I thought about this, and I am going to use John chapter 11 a little bit. But as my quest to answer this question evolved, I'm going to share a couple other scriptures with you as well. So we're not just going to stay in John, because I know we did the story of Lazarus a couple months ago. But I'm going to look at it maybe from a different microscope today. There's always more than one way to look at something. So John chapter 11, verse 1. A man named Lazarus was sick. He was from Bethany, village of Mary and her sister Martha. And you remember Mary and Martha were the two sisters that were there with was it? Mary was the one that was using her hair to put the oil on Jesus' feet. and wash his feet with the precious perfumes. So the sisters sent word to Jesus that, Lord, the one you love is sick. They were talking about Lazarus. When he heard this, Jesus said, this sickness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified through it. Now, the more I kept looking at this week, and I kept saying, you know, you got the conflict going on in Ukraine and all the suffering. And I picked up, and I was looking in Facebook, and I saw where there was a horrific accident where a young child was killed here in Long County. And it got me thinking, I said, you know, why would God allow all this suffering to go? Why would He let it? It doesn't make sense to me. Well, you're setting up all these prayers, and yet the suffering continues. We still have death. There's still evil in this world. Why is that? And I found that verse right there. This sickness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified through it. So, Lazarus has died. And the sisters, you know, that's their brother. And at this time they all lived together. So naturally, Mary and Martha are extremely sad, probably angry, and there's probably a mixed bag of emotions going on right there. Amen? Wouldn't you be? So, they call for Jesus because Jesus performs miracles, right? Jesus is God. And Jesus doesn't come. Second day, Jesus doesn't come. He waits 3 days. 3 days he goes and he calls Lazarus out of the tomb. Why did he do that? I think I said last week, Bob was joking about earlier. God performs miracles so that others will believe. But there's a price. There's always a price. And like I said, personally, if I've already got my reward, I don't want to come back. But there's been a few that did. Lazarus did. And Lazarus willingly paid that price. But let's go to another event in history. Let's go all the way back to 1 Kings. Does everybody know the story of Elijah? Back in this time, we've got the prophets of Baal. Excuse me. And we've got kind of a showdown going on. There's a lot of bad things happening in the world at this time. And what was one of the main things that God said to us? What's the first commandment? Love God. And what's the second? If you can do the first one, the second one will come in line. Love your neighbor as yourself. So, what are the prophets of Baal doing? they're worshiping idols. But I believe it was 450 of them, if I remember correctly. So the king, he says, this is getting to be a big deal. So we got this showdown. They said, Elijah, you just got this one God out there. We got 450. Let's have a showdown and see what we can do here. So the prophets of Baal, they prayed, nothing happened. And Elijah prayed, and guess what? Fire came down and destroyed all of the idols. I'm looking for my place here. Sorry, I just added this in this morning. Because I wanted to show where God is in this. The fire of the Lord fell and burned up the sacrifice, the wood and the stones in the soil, and also licked the water in the trench. When the people saw this, they fell prostrate and cried, "The Lord is God, the Lord, He is God." Elijah commanded them, "Seize all the prophets of Baal. Don't let anyone get away." They seized them, and Elijah had them brought down to the Kishon Valley and slaughtered. As I go through the stories in the Bible, there's a lot of bad stuff in there. And I think what we're doing nowadays, we're looking at social media, we're looking at the TV. And I gotta say, I believe that the journalists play a little part in how we conceive and how we see the world today. We're very impressionable. And we're putting all of our beliefs and thoughts into what we're being told versus what we're reading. And the main point I want to make this morning, I'm going to get to it here in just a minute. There's a verse that I didn't have time to look it up this morning, where it was asked where God is. And it goes something like, there was thunder and a storm, but God was not there. There was wind, and God still wasn't there. And then God came in a small, still voice. So where's God? Inside each and every one of us, through our prayers. And we all have that time of doubt. We all have that, how can this suffering go on? We should not have to watch our children die. We should never have to watch that. We should not have to watch senseless killings. We should not have to face evil in the eye. But we do. It's a reality. And if you read some of the books in the Bible, especially in the Old Testament, and if you go to Revelations, the Bible tells you that the world will become a time of dissension. I think we're getting close, but I don't think we're quite biblical proportion yet. But we're getting there. But our time on earth is not meant to be all roses, is it? It's not all meant to be a time of, it's not meant to be all good times. In fact, let's fast forward in history just a couple hundred years, and we're back to Jesus. And Jesus, when he was crucified, he's up on the cross. What did Jesus say? My Lord, why have you forsaken me? You know what that tells me? That tells me that Jesus understands our suffering. That tells me that Jesus is right there in the battle, in the suffering with me. And if we can just take his hand and let him handle our suffering for us, how much better would we be? And even though the whole world seemed to turn against Jesus at this moment, just a handful, you got John and the disciples and Mary, but everybody's cheering the crucifixion of Jesus. He's up there with the two criminals, the two sinners, which is very symbolic. This is a time of utter suffering, is it not? Jesus is right in the middle of it. He's taken our suffering so we don't have to. Because I don't know about you, but crucifixion is a horrible, horrible way to die. I can't imagine someone driving spikes through my hands and my feet. I can't imagine the pain. I can't even imagine having to be whipped and carry that cross the way that they did. Jesus went through a horrible time of suffering. And he did it for you, for me. He didn't want us to suffer. And what we're going through today is nothing compared to what Jesus took for us. Jesus understands. God understands. And why does he allow evil? Because we get the evil out of the way here and he keeps it contained here on earth. Our reward is coming. But evil is also a way to filter out the pure, the believers from the non-believers. Because when we can take and look evil in the face and accept the suffering that comes with it, we can do that because we know we got G-O-D in our corner. God's got my back. And he's got yours if you let him. So where is God in all this suffering? You just have to stop, take a quiet breath, listen for that small, still voice. There are thousands of prayers every day they go up. God hears every one of them, each and every one. And some of them are as simple as, God, can I get that shiny, shiny red Maserati today? That's unrealistic. But some of them, as little Lucy said, you know, I just wish my mama was here with me tonight because she died of cancer. And that's sad. Sickness, accidents, and evil exist so that God may be glorified, so that we may believe. Without sickness and death and evil, how strong would our beliefs be? How easy would it be to, yeah, I believe. But if you have nothing to base your belief off of, if you have nothing to test your belief, then how strong is it? So my question again, where is God? We're suffering, where's God? There's a test going on. Where are you? Are you there with God? Or are you letting him slip away? Creating your own demise? That's got to be your question. So with that this morning, if anyone this morning feels that they want to take this battle with God, with Jesus, accept him into your heart, come on down to the altar. If you want to accept Jesus into your heart for the first time, for the second time, for another time, the altar is open. If you'd like to become a member of this church this morning, the altar is open. If anyone that's watching online, come and join us here this morning. Come and join us any Sunday morning. Because without God into your heart, how can you pass the test? Is it possible? I don't think so. Scott, do we have something?
We do. If you rise, turn to 577. God of grace and God of glory, the first and the last. Gloria
service, and thank you for being here with us, and stay with us through the suffering, and bring us on to salvation, Lord, as we know you will. Lord, help us make the right decisions as we go into the world, and just help us to be the person that can help bring others to you, Lord. Amen.